Okay, welcome. If you're just joining me today, we're going to be making an easy drawstring bag for beginners, and you should see in the description what's needed to make this. We are going to be using, I always have my sheet of paper here to remind me of exactly what we're doing. We're going to be using a 19 and 3/4 inch by 8 and 3/4 inch fabric, and in addition to that, we'll be using a 20-inch ribbon. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to make sure that I can hear myself, because I realized last week I had during a live I had looked at a whole bunch of things and only to realize that I guess I can hear myself, so we're going to go ahead and start. This is the Imperfect Sewist, and basically what I do here is I show people how to sew really easy projects, and I talk about sewing so that you can see how easy it is to learn to sew and don't have to feel overwhelmed with your sewing journey. I also teach just a little bit about my credentials. I teach on Outschool, and I also teach if you want an in-person class. I'm in the DMV area. You can reach out to me using the email address there, and then we can get something scheduled. Now, the fabric we're going to use is 19 and 3/4 by 8 and 3/4. So I figured the easiest way to cut this is to have my fabric piece. So 19 and 3/4 is approximately 9 and 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. First, I'll have to fold my fabric. I'm using this really cute coffee fabric that I got off of online. I'm going to try to find the site I got it from and put it in the link here so that you can also get it if you're interested in getting it for yourself. Again, this is a beginner-friendly project. Also, if you haven't already seen it, sorry, I have a lemon candy in my mouth. If you haven't already seen it, I did do a podcast over on Friday where I talked about the selvage. So if you're looking, this is my selvage right here. Right here is the selvage. And sometimes you'll see letters and stuff written on it, but you can see how it loops towards the end there. That's what you would call the selvage. If you want to find out what the weft is, you can look up that and you can see what your warp is. I went over all of that during the class I taught during the podcast this week. So if that sounds like fun to you or something you're curious about, please go ahead and look up my last podcast from earlier this week, because it has all of that information on there. Okay, so now I'm going to cut my fabric, and I'm going to cut it to 9 and 3/4. So notice this area is also too, let's see if this is better. I'm trying to not, okay, maybe that's a better angle for you. This area here is a little flat, so I'm going to go ahead and try and make sure I'm okay. This is directional fabric by 8 and 3/4. When you're measuring, you don't measure from the very edge. You're not measuring from the very edge. You're going to measure from where your selvage is, because obviously you want to make sure you cut appropriately. So this is 8 and 3/4 here. I have my measurements here. If you're watching this, let me know where you're watching it from. I'd love to know. 8 and 3/4 here. And I'm just going to make sure I have everything set up here. And when I say I'm from the DMV area, I am in the DC, Maryland, Virginia. I realize that some people in Houston also consider their location as the DMV, so I'm making sure folks know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to go ahead now and move my mouse. out of the way and cut this on the line. If you don't have a rotary cutter, you can also use a pair of scissors. I just find that using my rotary cutter is easier, but it's not required for this project. A lot of times rotary, and mine are actually starting to get blunt because I need to change the blade. I do have a video of how to do that, so if you have questions about that, feel free to check out the video. This is the easiest drawstring bag you will ever have to do because it doesn't require a lot of work. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure here to make sure I have the right amount. Yep. And I'm going to measure for width. Okay, and next thing I want to do is take off my selvage. And taking off the selvage, like I mentioned, you can actually see it, so you don't really need to measure for that. Just go ahead and cut this out of the way. So some people might ask, why do I teach these projects when there's so many videos out there? Here's the thing, when you're a beginner sewist, so you've never sewn before, you see those videos and it doesn't really make sense of how someone went from point A to point B. And the reason I do this is because I know what it's like to start and not know exactly what you're doing. You know, it's funny because right now I am in what's called a race to, so this is a selvage, I'm just going to toss this aside. I'll put it in the trash. I'm in a race to get to 4,000 watch hours before the end of the calendar year, because my goal is to ensure that I am monetized. And when I say monetized, it doesn't necessarily, let's see, make sure, I think I cut that too wide, but let's count this. Yes, I did cut it too wide. And same here, so I will have to trim this to get monetized before the end of the calendar year. Now, when people say monetize, I know some people are thinking, oh my gosh, she just wants to get rich off of this. Let me assure you, I am not getting rich off of off of YouTube, okay? I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 3/4 here. My goal is to ensure that I am able to just, you know, do stuff with my sewing, and I'm going to cut it slightly shorter and not have to pay too much out of pocket. I love sewing. I want to teach everyone I know how to sew, but it's not cheap. I don't get fabrics for free. I don't get materials for free. I am not yet big enough where contents, you know, like sellers or brands come to me and say, hey, do a video for me, and in response for that, I will pay you. So in light of that, and given that I need to ensure that I'm not stealing from my kids' mouths, okay, I will need a little bit of this on this end here to make this up. So I'm working with Fusible Interfacing, if you're curious, and I don't have a continuous piece, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and just cut what I need, which is just about there. Oh, I'm not even sure how I need to have that, but it's just about there, so let me just... Okay, so I'm going to set these aside, and then I'm going to start the ironing process. Yeah, so this is not a get-rich thing. It's more that I am going to be spending my money, my time, and while sharing my knowledge, I absolutely love doing that. At the same time, I also don't want to spend, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have the same thought. You know, it costs money to do some of this. All right, I do want to mention something about this. Like, the interfacing has a glossy side and a smooth side. To adhere it to your fabric, you're going to be doing that on the glossy side. And I had this on. I'm not even sure why I turned it off. Maybe I was stepping away. But we're going to go ahead and let this heat up. And then I'm going to adhere the glossy side for this right here as well. And it's just slightly smaller, which is exactly what I need. So we're going to do that and just Yeah, I had it on. I guess I turned it off. You know what? I am going to use a bigger ironing pad. I have a wool pad underneath my sewing desk, so let me get it. Makes life easier to put it on a bigger pad here, so that it is easier to append to my fabric without running into problems. So there we go. And there's a little bit of room on the other side there. It is fine. I do have room on here. So we're gonna go ahead and do that once my iron heats up. So, and then once that happens, we're gonna go ahead and then start putting our markings on this. We'll measure out for the center of this piece of fabric. So yeah, like I was saying, it's still heating, but let's see if I have any. Oh, it has some heat to it. When people ask, why are you doing this? There's so many other sewing channels out there. My response is usually, hey, you know what? I remember what it was like to start out and not really know exactly what people were doing. You know, I'd see people go from point A to point B and not really explain that, because they made the assumption that everybody is at the same sewing level. And that's not always the case. Most people are just starting out. Some people are just trying to you know, pick up something here and there, make something nice, you know, or just try their hands on their first project to see, hey, is this something I can do? Is this something I like long term? And so this channel here is to help those people who are really just saying, you know what, I don't know if this is my thing. I don't know if, you know, but I want to try it out and see if I like it enough to invest more time and, you know, more time. I mean, and time is precious. You know, with the onset of AI and all the different things, I honestly think that sewing is one of those things that will become more valuable because you have to have multiple skills now. And yes, a lot of people will say, well, you know, a machine can do it. There's something about having a handmade gift that is just very different, okay? I'll take a handmade gift any day because over a store-bought gift, because I know that not only did the person spend their time, they also spent a lot of they took the time to think of me as they were making that item. So I am an advocate for handmade gifts. So what you're seeing me do here is pressing as opposed to ironing. This is ironing. When, you know, you see yourself doing that, this is pressing, and you do press into it here, the interfacing to your fabric. So it's like heat activated glue, which is what I'm just doing here. Okay, so it's fully on there now, and what I'm going to do now is fold this in half so I can get my centerpiece. And then from this centerpiece here that I've already let me do that again because I can't really see it. I have a light here which is kind of obstructing my ability to see things. It's not really obstructing. I have the lights to ensure that it's easy for folks to see what I'm doing. But I will take this and draw a line just so I can see. Okay, there we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is put my ruler on there and do approximately 2.5 or 3 inches from the center of this. So I'm going to put my ruler directly on the 1.5 inch mark. This is the 1.5 inch mark, and I'm going to mark an area that is 1.5 from the center line, and another area that's 1.5. So my total width of my gap is going to be 3 inches. So from here to here, it's 3 inches. Here to here. And I'm going to repeat the same thing. This is why I actually needed my ruler so I could fully properly identify the center. So I'm going to repeat the same thing here and here. And I am not going to sew on that. And you know what I forgot to get? My lining piece. So so we have this marked off, and we're gonna get the lining piece together. I actually didn't even decide on what I wanted my lining to look like, so y'all are gonna see me go through that process here. I have a lot of fabric pieces, so I do need to find one that kind of matches this. I forgot to mention also that my ribbon, which now I think is behind, yes it is. Okay, so you do need a piece of ribbon here. And while we're going through that, I will get my lining together. You know, it's funny because I have my husband's shirt, which I have been using, but I don't believe I have enough fabric for it. But let's try and see. Let's try this and see. He has an old shirt. It was going to go in... Oh, perfect. It was going to go in the... I have to move this because I'm not going to the ironing right now. It was going to go in the trash, and I was like, no, don't put that in the trash. We're going to upcycle that shirt, okay? So let's go ahead and cut this. I have to move that a little bit so that I can get everything. All right, I like this. So y'all can see in real time using my, I don't need my pink and shears. So I'm going to use my Ginger scissors. I love these scissors because they last, okay? I have Ginger and I have Guggenheim, and if you are new to sewing, get one of those, either Ginger or Guggenheim, and I promise you, you only need to buy them once. You're not going to need to buy multiple of those because they last, okay? You're basically paying for something that you wouldn't have to pay for long term, and that's the advantage of having that. So I'm going to get up here, and if you like this baby doll dress that I'm wearing, it's one I sewed a while back. Let me know if you comment pattern in the chat. I will send you a link to the pattern. It's not mine, it's but if you're interested and you comment pattern, I'm going to go ahead and send you the link to the pattern. I'm not going to throw out all these pieces because some of it will be useful for tabs if I wanted to sew one, and also I can use the buttons. So while I'm cutting this during this live, I am also thinking, what can I use this for so that I don't have to waste. That's the other reason why I think, as much as AI is here to stay, it is also a good idea to be able to utilize things that are considered manual processes, okay? So now we have this, and we have our piece here. So we're just going to put this on top, and we're going to go ahead and sew everything from here to here. So to ensure that you're able to see what I'm talking about here, I'm going to draw a line between these two areas. And so basically think about it as in I'm leaving a 3-inch gap between my sewing areas. Okay, so this is a 3-inch gap here. So we're going to sew everything around. Oh, guess what I didn't do? I did not turn on my sewing machine, so looks like it's just one of them days, okay? How many of you remember that song? Just one of them days. Okay, so it's one of them days. So I am going to go ahead now and take this over to my sewing machine and sew everything except for this line here. And then I'll take you with me as I do that. I just need to find my bearings a little bit because I seem to be a little disorganized today and not keeping things where they're supposed to be. If you have sewing clips, you also have the option to use those. And I'm going to move this over here. And I'm going to turn my sewing machine so you can see what I'm doing. And we're going to use about 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let me move my camera, which of course I put that there, and it cord moved with it. There we go. Try not to melt my cord because we're not going to turn off the iron just yet. We're going to use a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to get this done. And if you're just watching me for the first time, please note that what I typically do is I use black thread. I understand that it's not necessarily a matching thread, but I do that because it's easier for you to see it as opposed to using a matching thread. I probably should have clipped this because I can feel my fabric moving, but you know what? Too late now. I'm not called the imperfect sewist for nothing, okay? So we will continue to adjust as we go. And I promise you, because this is so easy. Alright, so we're not sewing over our gap here. I feel like you guys can't see this directly. Yeah. So we had the 3-inch gap here. We're going to stop our machine, cut that, and then go back here and continue sewing from the other end. I am going to back stitch, again using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we're going to turn this now that we have this. And like I said, I didn't pin it, I didn't clip it, use clips. It is what it is. It gonna do what it do, man, as they say. But hopefully it will still turn out good. This is an absolute beginner-friendly project, so it shouldn't require too much expertise. And it's one that, you know how like recipes come with not a full, I don't want to use the word full, but that's the best word to use. Come with options that you can't mess it up as long as you kind of follow the instructions a little bit and get your bearings. Well, that's kind of like this project, okay? Okay, so we'll lift that and then come back to our 3-inch mark right here. I'm trying to make sure that I have all pieces, I'm catching all pieces here, and we'll go ahead and back stitch. And keep going. And I thought for a second I had turned off my computer. I'm like, well, then y'all can't hear me. You probably can't see anything I'm doing. But you're still there. So if you're still following, thank you. Alright, so we'll move this aside and I'm going to show you what I've done here. So like I said, there's this area here where I have the 2 gaps here. I measured it out so that it is, let me see if I can move this a little bit. It is out of the way. To make it easier for y'all to see. You can still see me, it's just, okay, there we go. So there's this gap here that's 3 inches. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and take off my excess threads from the corners here, since that's where I restarted. And again, this is why I say black thread is absolutely needed, because you can see exactly what I'm doing. So now we're going to open this up and turn it inside out. Oh, there's excess thread on the back side. Excess thread on this side. And there's nothing wrong with keeping these end threads. I mean, it's not a faux pas if you do it. It's not a problem if that happens. And we're going to now turn this inside out. So take your time turning this inside out, keeping in mind that you did add an interfacing, which may make it a little more challenging to do. But just, you know, work it through. And that's part of the reason why we went with a 3-inch opening, because you're going to need it. Oh, you know what? I'm going to cut these at the ends here. It doesn't really matter. I'm just doing that to reduce the bulk. But why do I say it doesn't matter? Because we're going to square the base of this to ensure that it all looks good. Okay. So we'll just take all of this, push it inside out, push, 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 push. So the other thing too is if you wanted to do this without actually, without having a contrasting piece of fabric, I did a contrasting piece so that it's easy to see. It is not required, not mandatory. You can use the same piece of fabric. I tend to use old t-shirts and old, not old t-shirts, old shirts and old fabric for the ends. Oh, God bless me. Because, I mean, for the linings, because it's easier. I used old pillowcases as well. That's another upcycle opportunity there, or, you know, recycle fabric. So you're not spending a ton of money on your sewing project. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and we're going to go back to our ironing board so that we can iron it. Remember, we have an opening here and we have an opening on the other side, so we're just going to iron this so that it's actually flat. Okay, so let's go ahead and iron this flat. Making sure everything is as it should be, because obviously why not drop it, right? So remember, we have the edges here that's going to be sewn in, but it's actually going to be used for our drawstring area. So if you know me in real life, you'll know that I am not a fan of ironing. As a matter of fact, I dislike it with a passion, but it is a necessary evil when you are a sewist. So you do have to learn to iron. Okay, so now we have that, and we have our openings on the side. So now what we're going to do, I think I'm going to move that down a little bit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this opening and sit this inside. So now this is what you get, two sides. Like so. Okay. And we're going to iron these flat so that it actually sits on the inside. And we'll repeat the same thing on the other side as well. And let me just tell you, my ribbon is actually pretty cool. So when you go to Bath & Body Works and buy stuff, you have these ribbons that you can use. This is from Nothing Bundt Cake. So don't throw out those ribbons. They're perfectly good to use for projects. So if you're like me and you're looking for ways to save money, these are opportunities. You can use these things. I save all the ribbons I get for Christmas presents, from birthday presents, and different things because I sew. And I plan to use them for different things. So there we go. Okay, so our drawstring bag is starting to take shape. We're now going to go ahead and turn this inside out because, and yes, it's going to be one side green and one side coffee, but we're going to turn this inside out because I do want to square the base. So, oh, actually, this is the right side. Okay, that's why I was like, why is my directional fabric looking awful? So we had it on the right side, and I want to square the base. So we'll go back here and square our base. And to square our base, it's wicked easy, okay? So basically, you take this and do something like this, and we're going to make sure, I want to make sure that my fabric is together. Create a triangle. And we're going to find the 1-inch mark using our ruler. If you've seen this, I've told you multiple times, or if you've watched any of my previous lives, this to this is 1 inch. It's exactly 1 inch like so. So if you've seen that, so we're going to find the 1 inch mark from the front top here to the bottom, and we'll do the same thing here, and then just join the lines, and we'll go ahead and sew that down. So let me sew that down and then show you what happens next. We'll turn this and sew it flat, and then we'll come back. So if you're making this and you don't want it to have the different colors, you do have the option to, like I said, to use exactly the same fabric, like I said earlier, to do both the front and the back. Because I'm not going to hand sew this down, I'm going to cut off the excess so that it doesn't become a problem. And then we'll repeat the exact same thing on the other side. So we'll take this, create a triangle, find a 1 inch mark, 1 inch mark, 1 inch mark, and then just mark it across and sew straight down, making sure your fabric pieces are together and flat. That's important, together and flat. Okay, so this side is done. Now I'm going to take off the excess thread. We're almost done, I promise. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Okay, so now we're going to turn this inside out. So remember, if you had used the same piece for both your lining, what I would consider the lining, and the same fabric, and the outside, both sides would have the directional fabric. This is a coffee themed fabric, which I absolutely love coffee. And if you're interested, let me know, and I will put it in the link so that in the description so you can pick one up for yourself. Now the easy part, we're going to take our budkin. If you don't know, this is called a budkin, and it's basically used for pulling fabric. I'm going to fold that because it just makes life easier. You can use a bobby pin, but this makes life easier. So you know what, before we do that, I'm going to sew this down so that it doesn't keep moving over time. So let's go ahead and sew it down about 1 inch down. And you can measure 1 inch with a plate on your machine. Just making sure you're not catching the other side because you don't want to sew this shut. I'll bring this back so you can see what it looks like. So I sewed 1 inch down from the top here to the bottom, and I made sure I didn't catch the other side because then that would create a problem and would completely close out what I'm working on. And that kind of negates the whole purpose of this video. So let's go ahead, we've done that, and I will repeat the same thing on the other side, okay? And if you recall, I'm going to take this out. I did a video on the types of sewing machine you should get. This is why you want one that allows you to actually take out that arm. The adjustable arm is very important because it allows you to do something like this, like putting this around. Oh, you probably can't see what I'm doing. It allows you to adjust this by putting it around so that when you need to, you can just work from there. Okay, again, holding the sides to make sure I'm not going to sew it closed, so sew it shut. Okay, so both sides are now sewn. I'm going to go back ahead and put my arm back. It slides right back in, which is perfect. Now, we'll take off the excess thread from these two areas. I think I had one. I did see one long one. Okay, and then now we're going to go ahead and loop our ribbon. So I'm going to use the red ribbon first to pass it through. This is a 1/2 inch ribbon. And you do have to fully go all the way through. The reason for that is because you want to make sure that you're able to draw the string on both sides. So now you have it both on one side, and you'll take your other ribbon. It's interesting because I was looking for ribbons and I was like, oh man, I don't have two browns. But then I found that I had the red one, the burgundy one, which is actually good. I'm like, hey. So, and it kind of matches. It matches the espresso and I love coffee thing. So since this is the area we came out of, we're going to go in that direction so that we're going to start here and end here. So this is what this side looks like, and we're going to go in the opposite direction of the area we came from. So like I said, don't throw out the ribbon you get with your birthday cake or your birthday coffee, or your birthday or Bath and Body Works gift packs. They come in handy. So hold on to those because you can always use them later. All right. A budkin, it helps you with pulling the strings. It helps with elastic and different things. So now, believe it or not, we're absolutely done. I know this took a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but now you have your simple drawstring. And not only do you have a drawstring, you have one that sits and it's squared on the base. This is what it looks like. You also have the option to kind of tie this so that it doesn't come apart. You can tie that and then tie this on this side. That way you can pull it. So what I'll do is I'll double tie it with a knot. And repeat the same thing here with a knot. And you can even see it says Bath and Body Works. That tells you that I mean, this is not a promo video, but this is a Drawstring Bag. It has the back and it has a front. This will be perfect to put like a little tablet, if you had something you wanted to run errands or make as gift bags for the holidays. Or, you know, if you wanted to put pens and pencils for your kid going to school, it's great. It's a drawstring, so they can easily pull it apart and put it back together. So yeah, if you're looking for more beginner-friendly projects, I highly recommend you visit my site. The link is at the top here. Visit it at isewithjoy.com. I have many patterns, and also there's a playlist here that's entirely dedicated to new beginner sewists. So it would be perfect if you're interested in learning something new. You can go check it out. And thanks for watching. Okay, have a wonderful day.